I want you to transport yourself back to the height of World War II. The year is 1943. The Atlantic Ocean is a graveyard. German U-boats are sinking Allied ships faster than they can be built. The United States Navy is desperate. They need an advantage. They don't need a bigger gun. They need a way to hide. In the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, a top-secret project is underway. Codename Project Rainbow. The goal sounds like magic, but the government believes it is physics. They want to make a 1,200-ton destroyer escort, the USS Eldridge, completely invisible to the enemy. But they aren't just trying to hide it from radar. According to the legend, they are applying the unified field theory, a concept proposed by Albert Einstein. The theory suggests that gravity and electromagnetism are connected. If you can bend light using high-energy magnetic fields, you can create a mirage. You can wrap a ship in a bubble of electromagnetic energy so powerful that light waves simply curve around it. To an observer, the ship wouldn't just be camouflaged, it would vanish from reality. The Navy allegedly recruited the greatest minds of the century. Some say Nikola Tesla designed the original generators before his death. Others say Einstein himself reviewed the math. They loaded the USS Eldridge with massive generators, Tesla coils, and specialized RF transmitters. The ship was wired to become a massive electromagnet. The crew on board, mostly young sailors, had no idea what they were signing up for. They thought they were testing a new type of mine-sweeping gear. They didn't know they were about to become the test subjects for the most dangerous physics experiment in human history. On July 22, 1943, they ran the first test. The generators hummed to life. The air around the ship began to turn green. A green fog enveloped the hull. Witnesses on the dock watched in awe as the massive steel ship faded from view. It didn't disappear completely. It left a depression in the water, a visible outline where the hull displaced the ocean. But the metal was gone. The officers were thrilled. They had achieved optical invisibility, but the crew on board reported terrible side effects. They felt nauseous. They felt a static charge so strong it made their teeth hurt. They were disoriented. The Navy decided they needed more power. They wanted the ship to disappear completely, not just from sight, but from physics. They scheduled the final test for October 28, 1943, and that is when the experiment went straight to hell. On the morning of October 28th, the order was given. Engage the generators. The hum turned into a scream. The Tesla coils on the deck began to pulse with millions of volts of electricity. The green fog returned, but this time it was thicker. It swirled around the ship like a living thing. Then there was a flash of blue light, and the USS Eldridge was gone. It didn't fade. It vanished instantly. The water rushed in to fill the space where the ship had been. The dock was empty. 200 miles away in Norfolk, Virginia, sailors on another ship, the SS Andrew Furuseth, looked out at the water. They saw something impossible. The USS Eldridge appeared out of thin air in the harbor of Norfolk. It floated there for several minutes. The crew in Norfolk stared at it, confused. It was surrounded by a strange green mist. And then, just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished again. Back in Philadelphia, the space in the shipyard rippled. The air cracked, and the USS Eldridge slammed back into existence. The experiment was a success. The Navy had achieved the impossible. They had teleported a massive warship and its crew across space and time. The generals on the dock cheered. They prepared to board the ship to congratulate the captain. But as they got closer to the vessel, the cheering stopped. They noticed the silence. The ship was damaged. The antennas were bent. The railings were twisted. And there was a smell. A terrible smell of ozone and burning meat. When the boarding party stepped onto the deck, they witnessed a scene of horror that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. A scene that was so gruesome, the U.S. government classified the files for 80 years. The crew of the USS Eldridge had been shattered. The teleportation process had ripped the ship out of our dimension, but the re-entry had been flawed. The molecular phase of the ship and the crew had not synchronized perfectly. When the ship rematerialized, the atoms of the sailors and the atoms of the steel hull occupied the same space at the same time. The rescue team found sailors fused into the deck. One man was buried up to his waist in the solid steel floor. He was alive. He was screaming. His legs were completely merged with the metal of the ship. Another man had his hand fused into the bulkhead wall. His skin and the paint of the wall were one substance. 2 sailors were found fused together, their bodies twisted into a grotesque mass of flesh and bone. Those who weren't fused were insane. Some were running around the deck in flames, but they weren't burning. The fire was cold. They were glowing with ionization radiation. Others were simply frozen. The survivors called this the freeze. Men would stand perfectly still, unable to move, unable to speak, staring into nothingness. If you tried to touch them, your hand would pass through them like they were ghosts. They were fading in and out of reality. To save a man from the freeze, other sailors had to link arms and lay hands on him to ground him back to this dimension. If they didn't, the man would simply fade away and cease to exist. The medical reports were buried. The surviving crew members were discharged and declared mentally unfit. They were brainwashed. They were threatened. They were told that if they ever spoke about the green fog or the men in the walls, they would disappear just like the ship. The Navy painted over the hull numbers of the Eldridge. They sold the ship to Greece to get it out of the country. They claimed the experiment never happened. They claimed the ship was never in Philadelphia on that date. But the letters started arriving. In 1955, a researcher named Morris Jessup received a package. It was a series of letters from a man calling himself Carlos Allende. Allende claimed he was a witness. He was a sailor on the SS Andrew Furuseth in Norfolk. He claimed he saw the Eldridge appear in the green fog. He claimed he saw the men fused to the deck. His letters were erratic. They were written in different colored inks. They were filled with strange capitalization and scientific jargon about Einstein and unified field theory. Jessup began to investigate. He found odd coincidences. He found that Einstein had indeed been working for the Navy during the war. He found gaps in the Eldridge's logbooks. But just as Jessup was getting close to the truth, he was found dead in his car. It was ruled a suicide, but investigators found it suspicious. He was a successful author. He was not depressed. Many believe he was silenced because he was digging too deep into Project Rainbow. The Philadelphia experiment remains the holy grail of conspiracy theories. Skeptics say it is a hoax. They say Allende was a madman. They say the teleportation was just the ship using the canal to travel quickly. But believers point to the technology we have today: stealth bombers, radar jamming, electromagnetic cloaking. Did these technologies come from slow research? Or are they the watered-down descendants of a breakthrough that happened in 1943? A breakthrough that was so dangerous and so deadly that humanity decided to lock it away in a dark warehouse forever? We may never know the full truth, but somewhere deep in the archives of the U.S. Navy, there might be a file containing a photo of a man merged with a steel wall. A reminder that there are some doors in physics that should never be opened. I am your host. Don't trust the fog. Subscribe.